And we all know what happens next. We all know, as Jesus goes out to the Garden of Olives, that darkness settles not only physically, but also spiritually. That the disciples will be overcome by their own weakness. They will fall asleep. They will run away in fear. Jesus will be arrested, betrayed. He will be taken off, his trial under cover of darkness. And then the passion begins, his suffering, the carrying of the cross, the scourging, his death, burial in the tomb, and then the resurrection. And Jesus, sure, he told his disciples that these events would happen. He told them, we're going to Jerusalem, and there the Son of Man will be rejected. There he will be arrested. He will be persecuted. He will be put to death, and he will rise again. But I don't think the disciples really knew exactly what he was talking about. And not only that, they didn't know how it would happen, or when it would happen, or under what circumstances it would happen. They certainly did not know that it was going to happen tonight. And Jesus goes out to that Mount of Olives, but before he does so, he celebrates this Passover with them. He gathers them together to remind them who they are. And that's what the Passover meal was intended to do. It was that ancient custom of the Jewish faith that took them through a great remembering all the way back to their origins in Egypt when they were slaves. And it was at that time, when the lambs were slaughtered, when the blood was painted on the doorposts, when they escaped under cover of darkness and were set free from their slavery and eventually brought to the promised land by the hand of God. And that Passover that was celebrated year after year drew Jews of every generation into it to remind them who they were. This is who you are. This is the promise that was given to you. This is now what colors your life and drives you forward. Jesus gathers his disciples for that Passover. But in the course of that meal, as they are remembering who they are as Jews, Jesus transforms not only the meal, but also them. He transforms it because as he shares this meal with them, he reminds them, he tells them, he reveals to them that this is a new covenant. What is unfolding here today now is bringing to fulfillment all of that memory that we have carried with us collectively. That what happens here tonight is the real thing. That lamb that was the symbol for years and years and years and years, behold, the Lamb of God before you. That blood that was painted on your doorposts in Egypt, that we recall year after year after year, behold, in the cup before you upon the cross that you will soon see. My body, my blood. And it changes you. It will change the whole world. And as Jesus invites his disciples into that, he now sets them in something new to remind them who they are. And after his resurrection, this is the way he will show them. Don't forget, remember. As he walked along with the disciples, he broke open the scriptures, they sat down together, and he broke open the bread. And in that breaking of the bread, boom, they remembered who they were. They remembered that moment of the Last Supper. They remembered this new covenant. They remembered what it was all about. Their identity was confirmed. Because in these events that take place, they're going to forget. They're going to forget the last 3 years. They're going to run away. They're going to forget what Jesus had told them. But he brings them back after the resurrection, particularly in this new meal, in the Eucharist, to remind them who they are and to transform them into that new identity. And so they are able to go out singing a hymn of praise. They're heading toward the cross, into darkness, and they are able to do that singing a hymn of praise. That's what the mystery of Christ's body and blood does to us. It enables us to face our crosses with joy. Because the cross will always be there. It will always be there now until the end of the world, when Christ comes again. The cross stands before us, planted firmly in the soil of this earth, and suffering and trial and tribulation are ahead of us wherever we go. The cross will always be in front of us. It may take a different face. It may look a little different. It may come to us in a different way. It will be expressed in a different means, but it will always be in our lives. The cross is always there. Always. And yet, we are able to go toward the cross singing hymns of joy. Well, how can that be? Because in this Eucharist, we are reminded who we are. We are reminded what our life is about. We're reminded that it's not about me. This is not my life that I am living. Because if this were my life that I was living, and I am heading towards suffering, and I'm heading towards sacrifice, and I'm heading towards giving all kinds of things up, well then I am losing my life, and how can I be joyful about that? But if this life is about now living Christ's life, if I am to live the life of Jesus, then if I lose my life, well, I have lost nothing, because I have gained the death and resurrection of Jesus. I have something new. I can head towards that with songs of joy, because I know Christ overcomes that cross. I may not be able to, but he can. And if we remember that life is not about us, but it's about living as Jesus now, it changes everything. And we too can sing songs of joy as we head towards our crosses, to our sufferings, to our trials. It transforms us. It changes who we are to our very core, so that all of life looks differently. As we see this mystery unfolding, Jesus then is giving us today that source of strength in the mystery of his body and blood. And we recognize that it's Christ who gives this. In that second reading, we hear that it is Christ who is our high priest. It's Christ who offers the sacrifice. It's Jesus who enters into that new tabernacle in heaven. It's all about him, and that changes our lives then. It's his priesthood that saves us, that offers the sacrifice, and yet we are called into that priesthood. And that's one of the things that Jesus did to those apostles on that Last Supper. Changed them now to be his priests. To be his priests who would continue to present this sacrifice to his people so that they would know who they were. Moses did it with the Levites, with the Levitical priests. He gathered them together, gave them the bowls of blood, and said, go out now and sprinkle these on your people. Sprinkle them on the things that are ours to remind them, to make them holy, so that they know who they are. And in the new covenant, Jesus has done the same thing. He has given us priests today to remind us who we are by offering his sacrifice, to give us his body and blood. Yesterday, I spent the morning in Omaha at the cathedral for the ordination of our 2st new priests in the diocese. And it struck me in listening to the rite of ordination again, that the very last words the Archbishop speaks to the priests after they are ordained, as the ordination ritual comes to a conclusion, is model your life on the mystery of the cross. That's the very last thing a newly ordained priest hears. Model your life on the mystery of the cross. It isn't go now and be a shepherd to lead your people. It isn't go now and share the joy of the resurrection and live in glory. It is model your life on the mystery of the cross. We're heading toward a cross, all of us. And it is the priest's job to bring that into our lives, not for the sake of making us afraid, but for the sake of being able to sing those songs of joy as we go toward it. Because in some way, each of us share in this priesthood of Jesus Christ. That the priest ordained certainly shares in that in a particular way, but all of us through our baptism are baptized as priests to make this world holy, to change the identity, to remind people what life is all about. We have been changed by Jesus Christ. And as he gives us his body and blood, that reminds us, it nourishes us. How many times have you left this place, gone back into your lives, and completely forgot about thinking about God? Or you're going through your decisions and it doesn't cross your mind to pray about discerning this decision. It happens to me. It happens to all of us. We go into our lives and we get caught up in all of the stuff that's going on. And we forget who we are. We forget what we're all about. We forget about eternal decisions. That's why we come back here. Because we need to be reminded. And we need strength. We're heading towards crosses that we would rather fall asleep in front of or run away from like the apostles. But we need to be reminded that we can head towards them singing songs of joy. That we can be transformed. And this Eucharist and the priest that is given to us here ensures that that happens for us. Have you ever gone online or talked to people about, oh, I'm thinking about doing this, or I want to go here, or I'm looking how to fix something, or I'm trying out a new recipe. And so you go online and you read all of the reviews. And you read someone's review and it says, oh, it's the best thing I've ever done, everybody should try it. And the one right behind it, oh, it's the worst thing that ever happened in my life, run away from it. And you look through all of these reviews and everything, and everyone is saying something different. How can we know? And unfortunately, that same reality has struck Christianity. There are so many brands of Christianity today that say so many things, we would step back and wonder, what are we supposed to think? What is the message of Jesus Christ? That's why Christ established this priesthood with these apostles. These apostles would form disciples whom they would name as bishops, who would ordain their priests, and so on and so forth. So that the priest the church set before us today, from the hands of our bishop, we know is authentic. That comes from Christ, not just from anywhere. We don't generate that on our own. We can be certain that the gift of Christ's body and blood is just that. Remember who you are. As we come to this celebration, life is not about us. It's about being now Jesus. And heading towards a cross, yes, but able to sing hymns of praise even as we do so. Because it's not about me, it's about him. And in him we find not only that cross, but also the resurrection.